Okay, hello. So we are going to talk about how to use um, your color palette that you've created to essentially paint your sculpture with paper. So here I have um, a whole bunch of the same color distributed on my surface. And I think it's important to kind of have it out where you can kind of see it. Now, I have some of these darker tones that came from the same paper that I don't think I want right now. So I'm going to kind of separate those out. That's why when you're working to separate your color palette, into different baggies, that's really a nice thing to do so that you don't have to do this. Go and pick them all out when you're trying to do the painting part. So kind of have them separated. If you notice that any are like bigger than you should have, then you might pick it up and rip it up. So I've got a whole bunch here to work with. I've gotten some supplies. So this is a lip gloss applicator. I don't remember where I found them online, but I did. I found them, and I found that they really work well to really press paper into little creases. And then there's several different sizes of brush. I find the number 4 is pretty good. It's not the smallest, it's not the biggest. I like it. So we also have a little plastic ramekin, and we're going to put some art paste. You see art paste here. Now this art paste is a little thin. I'd actually prefer our paste to be a little thicker. It looks just clear. It is a cellulose paste suspended in water. It takes a day or two to absorb into the water. So if we start running low in the studio, make sure you let me know so I can get more mixed up so that we don't run out. Because if we run out, we will have to wait a whole day before we're ready for more. So I've decided that I want to make the shirt of my dude here this light turquoise blue. So I'm going to dip my brush in the art paste, and I'm just going to paint it right in the area that I think I want to start in. And then the cool thing is your brush is a little sticky. So if you just touch the paper, that's why I spread it out, touch the paper with the brush, then you can pick it up easily. And then you can just kind of put the paper down on your sculpture, and then you're going to rub it. And all of a sudden, it has taken the shape of my sculpture. So I'm going to just go next door here. I'm going to pick up another piece, and I like this guy. Now your colors, like your papers, can overlap. It's okay. It won't hurt anything. Now if it tries to run away on you, it might be that your paper piece is too big. So if you notice that's happening, then you might need to stop and rip your papers up. So the dye is coming off of the paper some, and that happens. If that happens to you, don't get too upset. I like this piece. I'm just going to set that in there. And like I said before, it's okay for your paper pieces to overlap. Now, when I get an area that I really am afraid that my paper is not going in the way I want, I can go in with this little makeup applicator. But if you rub it very hard, you'll rub the color right off the paper. So be careful not to rub too hard, but it does kind of have a soft, spongy applicator that's firm. So now I'm just going to continue. And this is kind of an organic process. You know, you don't have to have a big plan. Just go with the flow. And I'm just rubbing that in. I'm noticing this has a red edge. So if you put something on, like there's red on the back of that. That's why it's got a red edge. You put something on, it doesn't look right, take it back off. It's really hard to get off after it's dried. So if something's not looking right, take it right back off immediately. So I place that. I've got a little bit more paste on my paper. There. Sometimes it takes a little patience because the glue has to seep into the paper fibers and make it a little bit more malleable before it's going to take the form of the sculpture. So here I've got some I picked this area to show you because I've got a lot of texture and detail in the surface of my sculpture. You notice I'm not always doing this, right? Sometimes I'm taking the brush and I'm pressing it into the surface. And I'm just going to continue. I've got another piece here. Got a little more paste on my brush. Now, this is a little cumbersome when you first start. It's going to be a little frustrating when you first start. It's just learning a new process, figuring out the quirks of something new. And so don't think that you're bad at it if it doesn't just go beautifully when you first start. So I'm pretty good at keeping my hands clean when I'm doing this process. The reason that I keep my hands out of it and I use tools is that a lot of times we have dirt on our fingertips and we don't know it. And this wet paper is going to just soak up any dirt on our fingertips, and it's going to make our sculpture dirty. So I'd suggest not using your fingertip. If you have an area that's being really difficult, get in there with the sponge applicator, press it around, and we're starting to get some color on this little guy's chest. Now see, I have several papers that were on top of each other, and so when I tried to pick one up, I got several, and that's why I say to spread them around on your work surface. I got that placed. So it's okay if your paper overlaps. It's okay if you put it on and the color from underneath is seeping through and it's bothering you. Take it off. This is an artistic process, and nothing goes just perfectly the first time with art. Sorry to say. So I'm just kind of saturating that piece of paper and it's moving around on me. And I want you to see that it's not going perfectly for me. I want you to see that because in previous years, I've had kids kind of give up and think that they're bad at it when it's not that they're bad at it. They just haven't quite figured out how to manipulate the paper. Notice I'm using kind of a stippling, pressing that paper into the surface. And it's different. It's not like normal like painting, right? It's not like this. It's a placing and pressing. So I'm putting this one here. And I'm just kind of pressing that into the surface, getting those paper fibers nice and wet. And if you put something on and you don't love it, you can cover it up with another piece of paper. If like you don't get it off and it dries in to the surface of your sculpture. Now, I don't want the blue to go up his neck, so I'm gonna make sure I don't go above this edge right here that I'm working on. So I don't want this one right here because it's got a letter in it. And although letters are fine, if you want to include text in your texture, you can. It's just not how I have imagined my sculpture to look. Now you'll notice that I'm working on my sculpture with it in my hand and not on my sculpture base. And the reason for that is that I have so much more control if I am able to hold it and turn it in my hands than if it was already on the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait. And I'm not going to complete the back part of where my sculpture is going to connect. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to wait. I'm going to do this harder part. So like this part from up the foot up to the middle of the back of the leg, all of this, I'm going to do it after I attach my sculpture to the base. But I'm going to do the rest the easy way, where I can hold it in my hands, because I have so much more control if I work that way. So I can turn it this way if I want to look at it this way, and I can hold it in a lot of different angles and degrees, and you just don't get that same control if it's on the base. And I think easier is definitely better. Why do things the hard way if you don't have to? I do find that if you put a little paste down on your sculpture and then you put more on top of the paper, it tends to go a little bit better. But you'll get your style figured out. You'll be a very good collage artist by the time you're done with this. I'm going to pick up this piece. Okay, he wants to go right there. Put some paste in underneath, maybe that'll help me. And I'm just going to keep working and adding my papers. And I'm noticing that red kind of coming through on the edges again on this piece. It's because the back side of the paper is red. And that does sometimes happen. I'm going to cover those edges though with another piece of paper. So I'm not too concerned. And if you find that your pieces of paper are bigger than, like you're like, oh, I thought I ripped them up small enough, but now I'm using them and they're too big, just stop, tear them up, make them smaller, get it how you want it. It's okay to put a little paste underneath, like to pick it up and put a little more underneath. If you need to do that, that's fine. Try to avoid rubbing it a lot, because you'll rub that pigment that you work so hard to find and rip up, you'll rub it right away. So I'm really liking how that's looking. It's a little darker right now than it will look when it's dry. I know that from just experience. So it's okay to use your fingers if you need to. But like I said, if you are a person that likes to put your hands into things, go wash them real good with soap and water before you start putting them on your project. Because all those little tiny bits of dirt and oil that are on your hand that you can't see end up making your project look dirty. Okay, one more piece here. So you are in charge. You decide what colors go where and why. If you get confused on a place, you can kind of leave it and go work on a different section for a while. And if you do this and you leave it and then you come back next class and you're like, man, I don't like that color, you can go right over it. It'll be okay. All right. So I will make a video here real soon showing you how to connect your sculpture to the base. If you've already attached your sculpture to the base and you want to try to do this process with it on the base, you can try, but it really is okay to take it off the base, and just leave that part that you're going to um, do after you attach, just leave it for later. And when people look at the sculpture, they're not really thinking about, did they do this in the right order? They don't think about those things. So we're just going to do everything in the order that makes it easier for us to be successful. And that will make us happier artists. Okay, so I got my finger in there and it lifted some paper. So just be careful. Your fingers sometimes are not quite the tools we're used to them being when we're doing this process. Okay, so when you're done working, you can take your art paste. Now, if it's still clear, it doesn't have any color to it, you can put it back next to the sink and someone else can use it. But if it does have dye in it, it's discolored, it's not clear anymore, then I want you to go ahead and just throw that ramekin away with the paste, and we'll just get a fresh one. We don't want to discolor anybody else's project. This just needs to be rinsed with water. And if you used one of these, I would just put it with your stuff, and then you can keep using it the next class. Okay, guys, have fun painting with your paper palette, and reach out if you need any help. Have a good time in the studio.